Yo, yo. What up, people? Welcome to another episode of I'm Just My Opinion Podcast, episode 4. How you living? I'm living swell. Coming to you guys live and direct. I figured by doing a quick live stream will be a whole lot easier than making a video, downloading it, and processing it, and yada, 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 yada. So, anywho, let's get into today's topic. Today's topic is about Odell Beckham Jr. Yesterday, 2 days ago, he was released by the Cleveland Browns, and he made it through the waiver wire. Nobody wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole, not for that contract. And now he's officially signed, sealed, delivered, a free agent. And now any team in the NFL can sign Odell Beckham Jr. to the veteran minimum contract. Now, you guys know how I feel about Odell Beckham Jr. You guys also know how I feel about Baker Mayfield. I felt the way Odell Beckham Jr. and his family handled the matter as far as an exit strategy away from the Cleveland Browns, I thought that was kind of sour on their part. That was not being very professional, particularly when Baker Mayfield has always been in Odell Beckham Jr.'s corner. Suggested to the Cleveland Browns organization to get Odell Beckham Jr. I thought when he joined the Cleveland Browns, I didn't feel like this was a perfect match, a perfect combination. I felt like this was not going to work. It was a failed science experiment that lasted way too long, folks. Way too long. Okay? So, if you haven't heard, you've been living under a rock, allow me brother to explain. Apparently, Odell Beckham Jr.'s father, his daddy, was not too pleased with Baker Mayfield, sort of threw their business out in Front Street of social media and was whining, bickering, and complaining about the various times Odell Beckham Jr. was open. Now, keep this in perspective, and I like to keep things in perspective. The Cleveland Browns organization has been going through several transitional phases. They had a multitude of coaches exit stage left or got fired. They had a multitude of offensive coordinators that just did not work out. Now, this recent offensive coordinator, if you checked out his resume and if you check out what he's done thus far, he's the type of offensive coordinator that likes to spread the ball around. Keep the defense at bay. So defensive coordinators just can't just say, well, all they're going to do is just throw it to Odell Beckham Jr. So we'll just put our best defender on Odell Beckham Jr. Now, there have been times where Odell Beckham Jr. was open, wide open, all right? But there have also been times when he was given the opportunity to make a play. Somehow, some way, Odell Beckham Jr. could not get his hands on the ball. I felt like on several of these instances, Odell Beckham Jr. had alligator arms, either was fearing the hit or basically just giving up on the Cleveland Browns and the Cleveland Browns organization. However you want to label that and however you want to title that, that's your opinion. But my personal opinion is, no matter if you hate your colleagues, no matter if you hate the place you work, no matter you hate the fan base or the consumers, still at the end of the day, you're getting a check. You need to put your big boy pants on and be professional from beginning to end. All right? Don't be like a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old and just take your ball and just go home. You have to be professional. You have to be courteous from beginning to end. Even if you're in a environment that you feel like you're never going to succeed in. All right. Still be professional, still be courteous, still show up to work, still do your job until you're able to find another place to work at or another place to go, and you just move on. All right. Because you don't want your former employees telling your new employees about your attitude, your work performance, yada yada yada. You just don't want stuff to follow you, particularly if stuff it does not picture you in the best of light. But back to Odell Beckham Jr. So Odell Beckham Jr. was not too pleased with the offensive coordinator and how he's using him. And his father took to social media and was basically throwing all their business out there about Baker Mayfield, how they really feel about Baker Mayfield, even though there have been occasions where Odell Beckham Jr.'s father and Odell Beckham Jr.'s family has met Baker Mayfield and has met Baker Mayfield's family and girlfriend slash wife as well. So these two entities they know each other. All right, particularly when you're cheering for your boy or when you're cheering for your son. The families are out there in the stadium and they are among them. Okay, so this did not go too well for Odell Beckham Jr. personally, in my opinion, but he got his wish. He's a free agent and he's going to go elsewhere. All right. Here's my thing, folks. If Odell Beckham Jr. is all that and a box of Cracker Jacks with a prize in it, how come no team picked him up a couple of days ago when he was released by the Cleveland Browns? All they had to do was accept the remaining portion of Odell Beckham Jr.'s contract, okay? And he's instantly plugged into a contending team. How come the Green Bay Packers have not jumped on OBJ? How come the New England Patriots have not picked up OBJ? How come the Tennessee Titans have not picked up on the services of Odell Beckham Jr.? All right. I can go on and on and on. The Seattle Seahawks. There are a lot of contending teams out there fighting for position for a playoff spot. You mean to tell me Odell Beckham Jr. could not help the Pittsburgh Steelers? How come all of these teams that are fighting for playoff positionings, okay? We're not talking about the established teams that's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams or maybe the Dallas Cowboys. We're not talking about those teams that are full at that position and they don't really need the services of another wideout, particularly another wideout that's going to complain if the ball is not thrown his way. We're talking about a lot of teams, a multitude of teams that could use the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. How come none of those teams have picked him up when he was released from the Cleveland Browns? Better yet, how come none of those teams traded for Odell Beckham Jr.? If Odell Beckham Jr. is all what you guys claim he is, how come all of these teams did not even trade for Odell Beckham Jr., nor picked up Odell Beckham Jr. with the remaining years on his contract when he was released by the Cleveland Browns? There's a multitude of teams that had two opportunities to pick up Odell Beckham Jr. How come Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't picked up last year? How come no one request the services as possible as a trade for Odell Beckham Jr. last year? How come, folks? How come? If Odell Beckham Jr. is this guy that you guys claim to be, how come he hasn't been picked up in the past couple of years? And I'm going to tell you why a lot of teams out there have not picked up on the services of Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, people don't go stupid overnight, particularly people that have been in this business for decades, have been in this business for years. They can spot good talent, okay? People don't go stupid overnight. There's a reason why Odell Beckham Jr. has not went to another team. All right, because people see the real Odell Beckham Jr. All right, if you pick up Odell Beckham Jr. and put him on a contending team, and let's just say in a couple of games things does not go Odell Beckham Jr.'s way, he's going to complain about it through social media, through the media. Okay, he's a malcontent. All right. Not only that, the people, the friends and family and social media that loves Odell Beckham Jr. is going to whine, bitch, and complain that Odell Beckham Jr. is not getting the ball. Okay. This has been a pattern of behavior of Odell Beckham Jr. in two teams. Okay. When he was drafted by the New York Giants, okay, he had the New York city, the New York community at his doorstep. Everyone loved Odell Beckham Jr., but everyone hated Odell Beckham Jr.'s the antics of Odell Beckham Jr. All right. And that's the reason why the New York Giants got rid of Odell Beckham Jr. They saw that Cleveland's going to give us this for this guy? Oh, my personal opinion, they got too much. I mean, they lost too much for Odell Beckham Jr. And it didn't even work out the first year when Odell Beckham Jr. was with the Cleveland Browns. Okay, it definitely did not even work the second year that Odell Beckham Jr. Was with the Cleveland Browns. Not only that, Odell Beckham Jr. is injury prone. I don't know if a lot of people have been watching Odell Beckham Jr. or have been watching the Cleveland Browns, but Odell Beckham Jr. has been off the field more than on the field. And not only that, Odell Beckham Jr. has some strange, freaky ways, and I'm not going to go into this live stream, but Odell Beckham Jr., when he pleasured himself with other females, that didn't go well for Odell Beckham Jr. either. Okay, so look here. The Cleveland Brown organization said, okay, we're going to stay committed to a guy who's a malcontent, who complains when he does not get the ball, who's not a team first individual. He's an I guy, and not only that, he can never stay on the field because he's injury prone. And not only that, he cares more about social media than the actual thing that gets him paid and gets him famous, which is being a star wide receiver for the NFL. And not only that, off the field, he's been in some questionable decisions. Okay. Remember Pizzagate, where the infamous blunt, people thought he had a blunt when he was eating a pizza with some model in Paris. Okay. Do anyone remember that? Do anyone remember him smashing some thought that was a former rapper's girlfriend, and he requested that girlfriend to dump on him? Literally crap on him. Do anyone remember that? Okay. Well, organizations remember that. Organizations have Twitter handles. Organizations have Instagram. Organizations know what Odell Beckham Jr. does off the field and on social media. Odell Beckham Jr. is a creation of social media. Odell Beckham Jr., the majority of Odell Beckham Jr.'s hype of him being an influencer, a celebrity, a large portion of it is due to the fact that a lot of people love Odell Beckham Jr. on social media. But social media fans and sports fans are two different cadences. Okay, they're not exclusively the same in the majority of a lot of cases. Okay, just because you're famous on social media does not necessarily mean that transitions into you being on an NFL team. It does not work that way. The NFL really doesn't care how famous you are outside of the shield of the National Football League. The NFL only cares about what can you do, what can you contribute to a team that's a contending team that's fighting for a playoff spot. And there's a reason why a lot of teams have not picked up on Odell Beckham Jr. for the past couple of years. Now, let's fast forward to Odell Beckham Jr., a free agent. A lot of people are saying, well, he's Probably going to go to the Packers. He's probably going to go to the New England Patriots. He's definitely going to a contending team. A lot of these talking heads on social media and on these networks, the three-letter networks, the four-letter networks, they have all speculated, oh, Odell Beckham Jr., you can book it. He's going to the New England Patriots. Let's just use New England Patriots for an example, shall we? Okay. Now, the New England Patriots are by far not a real contending team. Okay. They're on the outside looking in, but they're not a contending team. And the New England Patriots is not going to request the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. The New England Patriots could have Tom Brady on their roster, and they would still say no in a heartbeat about Odell Beckham Jr. Why? Because a lot of these organizations know the makeup of Odell Beckham Jr. and how his talent is going to contribute to a team as far as winning ball games, being a contender, and possibly making it to the Super Bowl. You 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 can't make it to those steps and have a guy that's an I guy. He's not a we guy. He's an I guy. Okay. Not only that, he cares more about social media, video, and I don't have nothing against athletes that want to be Call of Duty streamers or wants to be famous on social media or have freaky activities out inside the bedroom or outside the bedroom. I don't care nothing about that. But at the end of the day, when you come into the locker room and when you come into a lot of these teams, you're coming in with the mindset of how can we win ball games and how can my talent contribute to them winning ball games. If it means that I'm going to be a decoy where my other teammates get theirs off, then cool. It's going to be some games where I'm going to get more catches, and I have to make use of those opportunities. Odell Beckham Jr. is an I guy, okay? He's come from the creation of social media. The same way like Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to get all up on Aaron Rodgers for another time at another date. But right now, let's just keep it focused and keep it funky on Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. is more hype than talent, okay? Odell Beckham Jr., if you could take Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime or Terrell Owens, real NFL fans, even though Terrell Owens was a malcontent, even though Terrell Owens, it was hard to root for him in certain occasions, it's hard to play for or with Terrell Owens. A lot of teams would just deal with Terrell Owens and his attitude over Odell Beckham Jr. Why? Because if you compare talent to talent, Terrell Owens is more talented than Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, yeah, I said it. I know a lot of you people are going to get mad what I just got through saying. I can go even deeper. Okay, would you want a Jerry Rice in his prime or an Odell Beckham Jr.? People are going to take Jerry Rice twice on Sunday every time over the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, that's too easy, right? Okay, let me ask you this: would you want Odell Beckham Jr. or Deion Sanders, who only played offense who only got 3 opportunities to play offense for the Dallas Cowboys, and occasionally helped the Dallas Cowboys on special teams? He was a phenomenal defensive back. Okay, let's not get it twisted. But let's just say if you can go into time and you can get Deion Sanders in his prime, you can only exclusively use him for 2 or 3 plays on the offensive end. You can't use him on the defensive end, all right? Or even on special teams. How many organizations would take Odell Beckham Jr. over Deion Sanders for those recommendations? People would choose a Deion Sanders over an Odell Beckham Jr. Why? Because Deion Sanders is a we guy. He's not an I guy, okay? Let's not get it twisted nor confused. The Kansas City Chiefs, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs that are, they don't need wideouts, okay? But wouldn't mind having Odell Beckham Jr., okay, as a plus. They need more defensive players than offensive players. But the Kansas City Chiefs are not going to touch Odell Beckham Jr. with a 10-foot pole, okay? Not because he's a malcontent, Okay, not because of the luggage, the baggage he's going to carry to another team. It's just a simple fact of he's really not that talented, folks. He's really not. He's talented in the sense of the creation of Odell Beckham Jr. But anything outside of that, he's not going to contribute. He's not going to contribute for a team. Odell Beckham Jr. is in the same lane as a Russell Westbrook. A Russell Westbrook is talented, okay, but if you if you pick Russell Westbrook on your ball club, you know full blown going in, you have to accept the baggage of a Russell Westbrook. You have to accept that he's going to be a turnover machine. Okay, you're going to have to accept the fact that what he's going to contribute to a team is not that much. Okay. He's not going to defend the best defender. He's not going to defend the second best defender. He's not even going to defend anyone that comes off the bench. Okay. He's saving his energy to be explosive on the offensive side of things. When you look at his talent, it really doesn't resonate as far as scheming him in certain plays. All right. But Russell Westbrook is in the same situation, but in a little bit situation than Odell Beckham Jr. All right. If you look at the talent does not doesn't translate into teams winning ball games. And not only that, Odell Beckham Jr. is really not that talented on the wide receiver spot. Okay. There are 30 wide receivers currently in the NFL that I will pick over Odell Beckham Jr. Okay. And a lot of GMs will pick over Odell Beckham Jr. A lot of head coaches would pick over Odell Beckham Jr. All right. So don't get it twisted. Offensive coordinators, there are at least 30 wide receivers in the National Football League right now that is hands down better than Odell Beckham Jr. Not talent, but fits better on those teams than an Odell Beckham Jr. You have to know your role. Odell Beckham Jr. does not know his role. And on top of that, he's injury prone. Okay. He cares more about social media than football. All right. And you never know. You might wake up one morning and find Odell Beckham Jr. in the news with one of his freaky exploits in the sheets, sort of say. All right. So you're gonna be embarrassed for him making the headlines in the wrong way. Plus, he's injury prone. Okay. Plus, he's a malcontent. Okay. If you don't throw the ball to him 5 or 10 times a game, then he's going to be upset. He's going to be like a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, where I'm going to take my ball elsewhere. I'm just going to go home and just give up on the team. All right. He's going to have alligator arms. And on top of that, when you compare his talent and you plug his talent in to your team, you have to say to yourself and wonder to yourself, okay, does this mean we're going to get more W's? As far as adding Odell Beckham Jr., if you're a contending team, you're not touching Odell Beckham Jr. If you are one of the elite teams, you're not touching Odell Beckham Jr. You're not going to jeopardize your chemistry that you just created thus far for the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. Contending teams and elite teams are not chasing headlines, okay? They're chasing titles. All right. If you are a team on the outside looking in as possibility of being a contender, you're thinking about it, you're kicking the tires around, but you're really not going to add the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. unless you're struggling on the receiving end. Okay, but you're not going to be one of those teams on the outside looking in, by the way. Now, if you're a team that's trying to sell tickets, if you're a team that's trying to be somewhat competitive to satisfy your fan base, then maybe you would get the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, but football is a team concept game. Okay, and I listed a lot of things in this live stream why I would not, nor GMs, owners, offensive coordinators, head coaches that are solid, that are established in their on their football teams, they're not going to pick up an Odell Beckham Jr. I think Odell Beckham Jr. time has come. I think his time has come. Does he really care about football that seriously? I don't think so. I think Odell Beckham Jr. Is happy with all the other things that he do outside of football. All right. I really think he's cool with that. I really think he cares more about being an influencer on Instagram, Twitter, or on social media than or YouTube, a content creator on YouTube than being on a football team. I feel like his time has come and his time has passed. Okay. And I feel like you're going to be hearing a lot of these stories from Odell Beckham Jr.'s own mouth when he does his own podcast, when he really can't get a job in the National Football League. And when the National Football League just says, you know what, we got 20, 30 guys that are better than you, Odell Beckham Jr., and they understand their roles, and we rather just roll the dice with those players than you. Okay. Odell Beckham Jr. was a fad. He was just simply a fad. Remember, people were, it wasn't that long ago, 3 or 4 years ago, people were talking about, oh, wow, did you see that spectacular catch Odell Beckham Jr. did in the pregame warm-up? Oh, my God, that one-hand catch. Oh, the shoes that he's wearing in the pregame warm-up. Oh, my God. Did you see what he posted on social media? Oh, my God. People were talking, were hyping, was bigging up Odell Beckham Jr. for those things 4 or 5 years ago, but nobody's not talking about that no more. Now people have grown up and said, okay, that's good and all what you're doing on your pregame warm-ups and what you're doing and what you're posting on social media, but what are you actually doing for the team to help the team get a W? Okay, so I feel like people have grown up and wised up. Not a lot of you guys, but some of you guys out there, and they're saying, "Look, this is not going to work." Okay, I don't see Odell Beckham Jr. with the New England Patriots because the New England Patriots are not that desperate. Okay, they at one point in time they were extremely desperate for a malcontent who complains that you don't give the ball to him all the time, and that bridge is burned, and they're not going to get burned again twice with another Antonio Brown situation. But they got rid of Antonio Brown quick, fast, and hurt, even when Tom Brady was on the roster. Okay, so what makes you guys think that Bill Belichick is going to ask the services of an Odell Beckham Jr.? Okay, even if he is signed with the New England Patriots, it's going to be a veteran minimum contract, and there are going to be stipulations in that contract that if Odell Beckham Jr. acts up or he does not commit to the team concept, they're going to 88 out the gate him. They're going to let him go. I think I better let him go. Let him go. They're going to let him go. All right. He's not going to be in a situation where he's going to be making a lot of money. I felt like Odell Beckham Jr. effed up his own bag. He fumbled his own bag. He was so close to the line of scrimmage, to the end zone, that all he had to do was just walk it in. But no, he wanted to do something spectacular, and he fumbled his own bag. Okay, folks. And oh damn, I always do that stuff. Hello? Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. My bad. But yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. has fumbled his own bag. He's never going to get a multi-million-dollar, and this is my opinion. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is going to get another opportunity to get a multi-million-dollar contract. And if he does get a contract like that, it's gonna have so many stipulations in it where if he even gets fined or if he's not in the culture of team first, they're going to let him go and they're not going to lose anything by letting him go. It's not going to count in their salary cap. Okay, so Jerry Jones, and I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. I tell people all the time, Jerry Jones, he loves to get guys like this. He loves to chase the narrative on headlines and stuff. Look, we got a big splash. We signed Odell Beckham Jr. Jerry Jones does not want Odell Beckham Jr. He's not going to send somebody in their culture and risk losing their chemistry that they have right now, even though they lost to Denver Broncos. But it had nothing to do with offensively. Okay, there was mistakes. Okay, but they don't need a receiver. The Baltimore Ravens, desperately seeking Susan, needs a receiver, and you don't see them asking for the services of an Odell Beckham Jr. Now, I feel like he's going to ultimately get signed this. It's only. I feel like if you're going to hear something from the Alphabet networks, Fox Sports One, ESPN, whatever the case may be, breaking news. This just came in. Odell Beckham Jr. has been signed, and you're going to see this big splash. It's going to be the veteran minimum, or he might make a little money, but it's going to have a lot of stipulations in it. And I feel like the places that you're going to hear his name paired with of that team is the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like that's Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens. You might hear the Saints. You might hear the Seattle Seahawks. I don't see a scenario where he's going to the Packers. All right. Particularly, the Packers got enough hot water in front of them with this Aaron Rodgers thing. And like I said, I'm going to get into Aaron Rodgers and his conniving ways. But I kept telling you guys, that's the type of person he is. Okay. But we're going to talk about that at a later time and at a later date. I might do that tomorrow. But to me, he's going to go to a team similar like that's on the outside looking in. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers would probably offer the services of an Odell Beckham Jr., but I do not see him landing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I do not see him landing with the Dallas Cowboys, okay? Now, maybe the LA Rams, but they have a good core of receivers right now. And why would you jeopardize that chemistry that you already established with those guys to chase headlines to get the services of an Odell Beckham Jr.? But I'm here to tell you guys, I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is all that in a bag of chips. I think he's more hype than talent. He does have talent, but I don't think it's the talent. It's the type of talent that's going to make a contending team. That he's just that one ingredient that a contending team could add, and they instantly are winning titles. I just don't see. He's never been that guy. Okay, and I guarantee you, Odell Beckham Jr. is probably sitting at home going like, "Damn, I messed up a good thing with the New York Giants. I could have easily just stayed with the New York Giants, and I could have been the toast of the town there. Yeah, even now, okay. They're still certain. They don't have a solid quarterback, and the coach, the Tom Coughlin is not there. I messed up a good opportunity with the New York Giants. Okay, and I guarantee you, he's resenting that. Okay, so that's all I got for today's live stream. I'm not going to stretch this any further. Guys, tell me what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. Hit me up in the comment section. Do you co-sign to what I say, or are you not co-signing to what I say? I really don't care. Okay, it's your opinion, just like I have my opinion. Okay. The last live stream I did, I talked about doing a call-in show where you guys could come in and just talk. If you want to roast me or roast my opinions or whatever, I was gonna, let you guys do that. I was gonna let you have an open mic. Now you can't say anything too crazy, okay? I'm not jeopardizing nothing, okay? But if you think I'm an idiot or if you think I'm brilliant, I don't care personally. But I told you guys the recommendations that you guys had to do in order for that to be possible. And you had to light up that comment section. You had to hit the like button, and you had to share that video with your friends, family, and followers. So far, that video it ain't hit. It ain't hit. Okay, so that just tells me that you guys are not interested in a call-in show. Okay, I feel like there's like one or two people that out there that wants to do that, but to me personally, if I can't get you guys excited about that, then why do it? It's not even worth the effort. It's not even worth the headache. Okay, so we're just gonna keep it funky. We're gonna keep it simple. We're gonna keep it on the same format that I always been keeping it. And yeah. So guys, tell me what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys on the next live stream on Aaron Rodgers. I am going to light his tail up. Okay. And I've been right about Aaron Rodgers for a long period of time, but a lot of Aaron Rodgers fans would creep up in the comment section and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, this, that, and third. I told you guys he was always an eye first guy. And what makes it even worse about Aaron Rodgers, he thinks he's the smartest individual in the room, but in actuality, he's the most dumbest person in the room. I'm pretty sure we have met people like that. We ran across people like that in our lives or in our workplace or in our communities or church or school. You have walked up to somebody that thinks they're the smartest guy in the room, but in actuality they're retarded. They're full blown retarded, and they don't even know they're retarded. They don't even know they're dumb. They don't even know they're the dumbest. That was the dumbest analogy that you just said. That was dumb. Okay, so yeah, he's that type of individual. All right. But guys, I'll talk to you guys later. Hope everyone has a productive Wednesday, and I will see you guys later. Thanks. Hit the like button. I'm up out here, deuces.